Hello ladies and gentlemen of the World Wide Web, my name is Ed320 and welcome back to a quick little Ed320 rants about tank concepts video. This is actually a rant that I kind of already had on hand that I figured it would finally be time I made public to everyone here on the main channel because I think it's really good. The basic backstory of this video comes from my time helping out with the Aces Armour up-and-coming tank simulator game that I've talked about on my channel before. During my time helping them model their Panzer IV, obviously I did a lot of research on a lot of concepts about the Panzer IV that I wasn't familiar with before in order to get it accurately represented in their game. And one of which is exactly what you see here in the title, how the Panzer IV's radio system actually works. More specifically, the Intercom. Quite literally, the developers of Aces Armour wanted to be able to properly portray what the radio operator actually does, like what is his actual job, what buttons and knobs does he touch on a daily basis, and to inform radio operator gameplay. So I went off and did my own research, and basically instead of doing some big text summary, I decided I should just record my ramblings for them and send it to them. So that's what this is. This is basically a video that I made for them, sent to them, and have not made it public quite yet, but now I'm finally doing that. I knew that I wanted to do this for a while, and I don't know why it took me so long to get around to it. The only caveat to this is the radio intercom system that I'm referencing in this video is a system that was introduced in late 1942, like very late 1942, where the Aces Armour game, upon planned release, they want to cover mid-1942, very specifically. They're going to expand further, obviously, go forwards in time, backwards in time, and all that. At least that's the idea. It was kind of funny where, you know, they implemented it onto the model. Then they came back to me and said, hey, actually, turns out that this is a couple months after the planned time frame of the game, so we actually can't incorporate this on the Panzer IV initially. I think they're going to have it as an upgrade, but note that prior to late 1942, the communication system of the Panzer IV was a little bit different than this. But anyway, enough rambling. Time for some rambling. Enjoy the video, and if you do, leave a like and subscribe. Do all that fun YouTube stuff. Join the Patreon if you haven't already. I like to say all these things kind of in the beginning of the video just to get them out of the way because I always know I'm going to forget when the end of the video comes around. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Enjoy the Panzer IV radio operator rant. Hello there, Aces Armour developer team. Welcome to my official presentation on how the hell German radio equipment worked in the Panzer IV. So firstly, I have this image pulled up. This is an image that I sent to you guys in the discussions and questions, the Panzer IV-E modeling. This is not accurate. I want to just quickly dismiss this right now, that this is not a good chart to use, and I apologize, and we should get rid of this because this is a diagram for the configuration in a Sturmgeschütz. It says here Panzer III and IV, F2 and F5. But I was looking into the actual, all the different boxes and all these different, I didn't just want to know what these were. I wanted to know what these little things were. I wanted to know what everything was and what it did. And I found that these are components specifically for the Sturmgeschütz. Even this stuff is not quite labeled correctly. This is labeled as the UKW.E.H. The radios that we actually are going to end up talking about. UKW.E.E. not .H. They are slightly different, and this is the N.24. We actually want the N.20. You don't want to get those mixed up because this is a really, really, really important component. And yes, all these things are one letter off, slightly not the right version. Again, this is the 10 watt .S.H. The one that we're going to look at is the 10 watt S.C, I do believe. They're just slight differences because of Germany. But it makes sense though, because the Panzers, like the Panzer IV and whatnot, would be in with the Panzer arm, whereas the Sturmgeschütz would be in with the artillery. They were literally in two separate arms of the army, so it makes sense that they would have different equipment. Also, especially later in the war, the Sturmgeschütz was very frequently used as command vehicles and whatnot. Actually, I think literally in 1943, they stopped using the STKFZ 221 or whichever one it is, I forget. One of the half-track STKFZs as a command vehicle. They stopped using those and they use Stugs, and so they build command variants of Stugs, and there's command variants of every tank, but they build command variant of the Stugs. The Sturmgeschütz becomes the command vehicle. So it makes sense. So anyway, enough with that ramble. You guys want to know how all this works. So I have done a bit of a schizophrenic babbling and created this chart. I also found this, and we will look at this in a second too. This is literally this is how it all works, and we will go through this, I promise. So there are a couple of really important key components for this. So obviously we have two receivers and a transmitter. I told you guys this in the discussions questions. I posted this. This is the really, really, really important bit. The FU5 system is this coupling up here of a receiver and a transmitter, and then the FU2 is the second receiver down here. So it's the FU2 plus the FU5. And again, they're arranged this way. So the transmitter is up on the right, and there are the two receivers. The intercom amplifier is super, super important. I got its position from this video, the in-depth Panzer IV analysis, which this is a Panzerkampfwagen Ausführung J, but as I noted, like all the sources that I read, they all say that like every model of Panzer IV used the FU5, FU2 system. As did Tiger, as did Panther. In fact, a lot of the resources that I found on this were all about Tigers and Panthers, and I really had to work backwards. There's this shot from the video, and you can see there is the transmitter, there are the two receivers, and then in the middle, he has it kind of propped up right here. I don't know, obviously, like, we are struggling really hard to find, like, period photos of the inside of a short-gunned Panzer IV, Ausführung A, B, C, D, or E, or even F. So I don't know exactly how accurate this is, and how, like, if we can find interior photos of that's where it is, but like this is a spot for it that makes by far the most sense to me. I can't imagine where else it would go, especially based on its function. So I think we could take this radio setup, like this looks good to me, this looks very accurate to me. Now what are these two little things? These two little things are basically what the commander and the gunner plug in their intercom, their headphones and their throat microphones. Like what I had said in the chat, I am aware of how the Sherman works, and inside the Sherman, on the wall of the Sherman, there are these little blocks, and yeah, they have plugs, and your tanker headphones, you plug them into the little blocks, and then the blocks are all interconnected, and they go into the intercom system. This is the same thing. So these two things, the NR21 and the NR22, these little blocks would be mounted on the wall, the inside walls of the turrets for the commander and the gunner. The NR21 was where on the commander's side and to plug in his headphones and his microphone, and then 22 is for the gunner. The reason why they need to be different is because the commander and the radio operator both have a special set of tanker headphones that have a 3-prong connector. The commander's throat microphone is also unique in that it not only has this switch right here, which is a normal on-off switch, just to turn your mic off and turn it on, but it also has a second switch right here, which we'll get into in a minute. But it's for switching him. It's for him switching who he's talking to in the tank. And I'll explain what I mean by that. The radio operator also has a 3-prong connector, but he does not have that second switch. He just has an on-off switch. KMF.B throat microphone is what these are. The other crew members, the driver and the gunner, it's the same thing, but only one button and 2 prongs. That middle prong is gone, it's just 2. And those are the KMF.As. That's why they need 2 different little boxes here for them to connect up their microphones. And also their headphones. It's got 2 slots. I assume it's 2 slots very similar to what the transmitters and stuff have, or what these have. You can see here, funker, microphone, there's a microphone slot, and then headphones. This is where the radio operator connects up. You can see he's got that 3 prongs for the radio operator, and then his headphones just have 2 prongs because it's headphones, but his microphone has the 3. The driver and the radio operator connect up to this. This is the NR20. So this is it. This is looking at it flat on. On the other side of this is where the driver is sitting. So the driver and the radio operator both connect up to the 20, the NR20. On the top is this, and then that's where the 2 receivers, EMF1, EMF2, the 2 receivers connecting up top, and then sender, the transmitter. So the transmitter connects up to here, and the 2 receivers connect up there. That's what it says right down here. And then this is the other side. This is for the driver. So headphones, I presume. You see it's a 2-prong connector. And then microphone, 2-prong connector for the driver. You may notice the loader has nothing. Yeah, literally from what I can tell, the loader has no headphones, no microphone, nowhere to connect anything. As far as I can tell, the loader is completely left out of like the communication process. The receivers are pretty basic. They're pretty normal. Like they are just for the receivers. Like you code them to a frequency, you set them to a frequency, and you can have a dial. You can mess with the presets. You can have a couple preset frequencies, and then you can tick around to them to listen in on different frequencies. They're just for listening. They're receivers, right? I'd imagine you have 2 of them, one for like your local platoon, whatever, a more small localized net, and then the second receiver you could tune into like battalion headquarters or something. And then the transmitter obviously is how you transmit. And again, you would have the frequency, you would set it to your frequency. There's a couple preset frequencies that you can have, and then you can flick between them. I would imagine that's what this dial here is for. The 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm pretty sure that's for frequency. There's like frequency tuning knob right there. This is just where things plug in. There's the antenna, like the cable that leads all the way out to the antenna plugs in here, and then there's your microphone and headphones. So these have their own microphone and headphone plugs in them because this is just standard radio equipment. Standard radios that can all be used individually, threw them in a tank, and then connected them all together with the NR20 with this guy. So this guy is really important. This guy manages everything. Now that you know what equipment is used, let me now explain how this works. In the tank, there are 2 lines of communication, and they are beautifully illustrated in this old 1940s instruction manual, red line and green lines. This is the commander sitting in the back left of the tank. I imagine this is for like a tiger or a panther or something, but the function is all the same. In front of him is the gunner, and then in front of him is the driver. To the right of the driver is the radio operator, and then the loader he's kind of implied because there's a right angle right here, but the loader is not in on this. The loader he's got nothing. And then you have E for this is your receivers, and then S for your sender, your transmitter. The radio man in between, you see he's got green lines connecting them both, so the radio operator can listen to the receiver and the transmitter. He's there. So the green line is like the radio comms, and then the red line is the intercoms, like specifically just the crew, the intercrew. So it's 2 lines of communication. So on the box you have 2 switches that control like everything. So on the right side here, Funk. Funker is radio operator. That is the name in German for a radio operator is the Funker. You can see him there, Funker. Very funny, I know. This means the radio operator is talking alone. Like he is by himself in his isolated system. He can't talk to anyone else in the crew. He can only talk to the transmitters, and he can listen in on the receivers. Flip this up to, literally this is Funk U-Board, radio operator and everyone. It connects the green line with the red line, and now the radio operator can talk to everyone else in the crew. On the left is listening. So if you have this switched up, Funker U, tank commander, EMF1 and EMF2. EMF is the receivers, so receiver 1 and receiver 2. So you flick this up, and this means that you are listening to both receivers at the same time. Flip this down, the Führer, the commander, the tank commander can listen to receiver number 1, and then the radio operator is listening to receiver number 2. So that is like to kind of break up that sort of responsibility. So you're not flooding the channel with both receivers. You can split it up between specifically the commander and the radio operator. The commander has a very special connection point that allows him to bridge that gap between the red line crew intercom and the green line radio communication. We'll get to that in a second. And it's about how his tanker headphones are different. These are the only 2 switches that you would be flicking around to change how intercom and how communication with the crew is working. And thankfully, we have this awesome diagram to teach us exactly how this works. And it even has neat little diagrams right here that show you. So that's what we were just talking about. The Funk F is radio man talking to himself. He's by himself. And then FB, Funk U-Board. So that's the radio operator and everyone. So and then the listening dial down here. Kopplung literally means coupling. So listening to both, again, receiver 1 and 2. That's this option here. Trennung, that one, is like single, like singular. Or I think separate, actually, is the official translation. So then you can kind of imagine that messing with the radio is just any combination of who you're listening to and who you're talking to. But what about the tank commander? The commander is just in the normal crew comms. And this makes sense. He can direct the tank. He can call out targets for the gunner. This is, the tank guys are busy doing combat stuff, and the radio operator is alone managing communications. Everyone who needs to be talking to each other is, and everyone who's not needs to be talking to each other isn't. It's actually, to be honest, it's actually quite smart and quite efficient. You see this little box here, microphone aus. This is microphone off. The commander has that extra switch on his throat microphone. So then, commander will talk. The commander flips his microphone on. We have not changed anything on the NR20. We are still Funk, and he is still Kupplung. All the commander has done is flicked on his tanker headphones, that second switch that he has that no one else has. He has flicked it on, microphone on. Now the commander has switched over to the radio operator line. He can switch from the crew intercom to the radio line. So now the commander can talk to the radio operator, and he can listen to both receivers, and he can talk on the transmitter if the radio operator then switches the transmitter to telephone. If we take a look back at the transmitter, you scroll down to the diagram. ALS is off, so this is literally the dial to turn off the transmitter. TN is telephone, which is to talk, to transmit. Empfang was, I think, receive. I think it was listen, which doesn't make much sense because it's a transmitter. I have to figure out how that works. And then this one, this like really long one, this one all the way to the right, is telegraph. Like literally like a telegraph machine, like a do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And I was looking at the other transmitters, and especially the one that was in command tanks, and it mentioned that it has the ability to translate into Morse code. So you can communicate you can do Morse code instead of actual voice talking, which is pretty cool. So the only options that we would need for the game is off and telephone, which is basically talk. It's basically, think of this as off and on. If we keep this at Funk, the commander is on the radio line, and then the radio operator switches from Kupplung, from coupled to separate, Now the commander is on the radio operator's line. The radio operator is listening on receiver 2, and the commander is listening on receiver 1. That's how that works. So for the commander and the radio operator to both be like listening to the same thing, there has to be that coordination. But of course that also means that disconnects him from the crew line. So now the driver and the gunner can talk to each other still, though, right? They still have that crew intercom. And yeah, the commander is like, all right, like you two, like hold on a second, I need to go talk to the radio operator, and I need to go like listen in on what's happening, or I need to go issue an order or something like that. So the commander can flip that switch. He disconnects from the intercom, the crew intercom, with the driver and the gunner, and he goes to talk to the radio operator. Now here, if you switch this from funk to funk and everyone, this is the switch that the radio operator can flick that connects everyone. And you can see this little note here, microphone Beliabig. Don't know how to pronounce German. Translated this, it means, I think it was like microphone, like not matter, something like that. Any microphone, which basically means in any position. No matter what, the radio operator has connected everyone. Now everyone can talk to each other. And then you still have Kupplung, so everyone is now together on the exact same frequency, and everyone can listen to everything as well. If the radio operator has it set to funk and everyone, and then switches the listening from Kupplung together to Trunug, separate, everyone can talk to each other. The commander, the driver, and the gunner can all listen in on receiver 1. The radio operator can listen in on radio receiver 2 and also transmit. I am very happy to send over all these individual images so you guys can wrap your heads around them too. But yes, that is the basic gist of this. The way it was described in this is that 90% of the time it's on mode 1, which is to say this one. So the radio operator is alone in his own world, and it says like down here, this whole paragraph, if you translate this whole paragraph, it's like a very polite way of saying like, don't bother your tank commander because he's a very busy man and he doesn't have time to listen to your bullshit. Quite literally, that's basically what they say. So the idea is like radio operator, like sit alone, listen to shit and talk whatever you want, like just be in your own world. And then if the commander needs you, the commander will flip his switch and he will talk to you, and he will jump onto your net and he will talk to you with what he needs. Like, all right, hey, radio operator, like what have you heard from receivers? Like what's going on right now? Like what have you been hearing? What's up? And then radio operator can say, oh yeah, da. And the commander can say, okay, like send this message, like tell tank number 3, like we're gonna do this. And then the radio operator can either patch the commander in directly to the transmitter by setting it to telephone, and the commander can talk himself and say, all right, tanks, like this is tank number 3, we're gonna move in. Or he can just have the radio operator relay his message for him. Yeah, I mean, maybe we could implement this. Like, we really could implement this. Although I don't know what your gameplay, what y'all's gameplay system is like entailed to be, like what you guys expect it to be. But obviously, like I said, like receiver 1 and receiver 2, I don't really know. Like, I can imagine one of the receivers being like, talking to your fellow tanks on your team. I don't know what the second receiver could be for, because none of this controls the intercom. This controls the intercom. So I can't imagine what the use for the second receiver would be. So maybe it's not too necessary to mess with like this button. Well, no, it would be necessary to make this a button that interactable, because if the radio operator wants to be alone, and then the commander wants to hop in and then listen to frequency 1 and 2 by himself, the radio operator can switch from Kupplung to separate, and then like the radio operator and the commander are both on the same radio net together, but the radio operator is listening in on receiver 2 and the commander is listening in on receiver 1, and then if they need to send something, they can. I'm not sure why you would do that, but you can. That's like part of it. There's none of the pamphlets show that, but like to me, logically, that seems like you should be able to do that. Yeah, so that's kind of like it makes a lot of sense. It's all very logical, and you guys can program in whatever you want, however you think it should work. And then this is literally a volume switch. Also, again, off, ein, on, and then volume. So this can actually change the volume of how loud everyone is on the intercom inside the tank, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I'm gonna edit this together and then throw it out to you guys, and hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.